Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of BC Plus Live. I'm your host, Jeremiah, W9JEM. And tonight I'm joined by my co-host, Andy.
KC9SKV.
And our special guest co-host, Jeremy.
KD5YUZ.
And tonight we are actually going to be going over getting ready for the 168, how to export your code plug from your 878 or your 578 and import it into the 168 software and setting up the key functions, since there is one less button on the 168 radio to program. So that is what we are actually covering tonight. Also, we're going to do a little bit of catching up with Jeremy, see how he's doing, what he's been up to, and see what mischief he's gotten himself into as of late. Oh, come on. Halloween's coming up next week. There's got to be some mischief, or at least a black cat hanging around somewhere.
He's got to be doing something, because, I mean, Lord knows I am.
So, first of all, hello to everybody who is watching on YouTube. So, hello to Pamela, N1ZKH. Also, good evening from Massachusetts. That is where I am actually located. Andy is in Indianapolis, and Jeremy is in Oklahoma.
Where the wind blows, sweeping down the plains.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly my point.
So, the 168 is the new radio from AnyTone. It has a lot of the features that the 878 has, but it also has a couple less features than the 878. And as you can see, Jeremy's got one in his hand right there. The 878 has Bluetooth and GPS, while the 168 does not. But you can still do analog transmit APRS if you set up fixed beacon location in the CPS for the 168. And you can also do digital APRS, transmit and receive, through a supporting network like Brandmeister, as long as you have the correct contact set up and the channel set correctly for your hotspot. If you are using a repeater, check with the repeater owner to make sure that they allow APRS to be sent through their repeater. Some repeater owners don't like that. Some repeater owners are fine with it. So when in doubt, reach out to the repeater trustee and find out. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the 878 software. So we can pull that up real quick. Let me share that. All right. So everybody should be able to see this, okay? And this is the 878 software. I'm on version 3.04. And this is a blank version of the super code plug. So this doesn't have my radio ID or any of that stuff set up in it yet. So if you're going to export this for the 168, the simplest thing that you can do is come over here to Tool, go to Export, and you're going to get this lovely pop-up window. Now, in this pop-up window, you can choose individual things that you can export, or you can just export everything. If you already have your digital contact list in here, but it's outdated, what I actually recommend doing, if you're not using the 5-tone, the 2-tone, the DTMF, the receive call group, the FM, the pre-set up SMS, the analog address book, the scan list, if you're not using those, normally what I will do is actually just export the channel, the radio ID list, the zone, and the talk group list. When in doubt, just click Export All. And I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this 878 Export. So there's that. and then I'm going to double click to go into that folder, and I'm just going to put today's date. So 10/24/24. I'm going to click save, and then it's going to ask me, do I want to export all the files? Yes. This will export all of the available settings right here. So all of these. Now, it's going to act like it's not doing anything, and you may even get a not responding message like we see right here. Don't worry about that. Just hang out for a minute, grab yourself ice cold soda or tea, depending on which part of the country you're in. Whatever your favorite ice cold beverage is, or if it's freezing outside at the time you're watching this video, some hot chocolate. And by the time you come back, it will actually say export OK or export complete, and then give us the OK button to click on. So this part does take a few moments because it is the digital contact list does take a little while to export. When I go to import this, it's going to take a minute to import it into the 168 software as well because it's using that digital contact list, which is fine because I'm going to update my digital contact list later as well. If you feel more adventurous, something you can do is you can actually edit your .lst file that is saved in that folder, but only if you're feeling adventurous with that and you want to take and tell it not to do the digital contact list. Give me 1 second, Alan. I just saw your message in YouTube while I'm waiting on this to export. So give me 1 second here. Okay, there we go. Export complete. So I'm going to click OK. And then that pop-up window is going to disappear. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my 168 software, which I already have open. And you'll notice I've got a blank code plug here. Usually what we do is we read our radio first. But for the purposes of this video, let me find my cable for my 168 because I have about 15 USB cables sitting on my desk right now running into a hub. So give me 1 moment here.
Whenever I told you when I worked with you, they're little flags. They got them at Staples. They go right around the cable in different colors.
Yeah, the gray one. It's the only one with a flag on it. That's how I know it's the USB-C. Okay. So on my computer,
slowly but surely, he's learning.
Yeah, there's too much water in my caffeine supply right now.
Fair enough.
So, because I had to reinstall Windows on this computer and my 168 was the first radio that connected, it actually assigned COM3 to this radio, and my 878 is assigned to COM4. So this is my 168. I'm going to click OK. And I'm just going to tell it to read the radio. And it's going to ask me, do I want to save my changes? No, because this is a blank file. Read data from radio? Yes. Do I want to read my digital contact list? No, because I will be here all day. Not all day, but figuratively. Okay. So this is the code plug that's currently in my 168. And you'll notice up here, it changed the information on the 168 to show the transmit and the receive frequency for my 168, which is in the amateur band, which is what I want to see. So it puts my code plug in the correct way, or the correct mode. Let me rephrase that. Because if you don't do that and you just import the code plug file, it's actually going to take and look at whatever you do file new when you do a blank code plug. And if you don't set that mode to mode 7, you're going to get a band error when you go to write to the radio. So you always want to take and read your radio first before you import files. That way, the code plug is already set up for the correct mode.
That and you stop a headache before it starts.
Yes.
If I had $1 for every call that I accepted like that, I'd be a rich Indian right now.
You'd be a rich Indian, and I'd be a rich computer geek with a lot more hard drives than my computer. Well, I've only got 4 in there right now. I'm adding 2 more tonight. Plus the 4 that are sitting in the storage device on the desk.
Did not.
I gotta have somewhere to store my photography photos. All right. So to import, what we're going to do is come up here and click on Tool, Import. And since I have multiple monitors, it put it on a different screen, but let me drag this up here. You'll notice that we have a different layout. This is because the 168 actually has QDC 1200, which is the equivalent of Motorola's MDC 1200. The 878 UV2 Plus and the 878 UV and the 578 Pro and 578 UV 3 Plus do not support QDC 1200. And because of a processor limitation, it is not something that can be added in the firmware. But it will be available on the next generation of the 800 series and the 500 series radios, because they will have a brand new processor. So that being said, I'm going to click Import from File List. And then, let's see, where did it go? Well, when in doubt, go back to the other one and look at where I exported it to. If I remember to hit Export All first. Okay, blank super.
It's in the home.
BridgeCom, AnyTone code plugs. Okay. All right, back to the 168 software. Blank super. 878 export. And you'll see I have that list file, but if I tell it to look at all the files, or if I go into that folder directly in File Explorer, you will see a bunch of CSV files that are in that list. So what I'm going to do is select this list file, click Open, and then it's going to ask me import from file and list. Yes. Now, you guys can't see this progress bar right now because it's on the other screen, but there's a progress bar that says import data that is going across the screen. And it's going to take a minute for that to actually read everything. Mostly because of it being in all those CSVs and that digital contact list that it exported. Jonathan, thank you for that link you sent me on Facebook. I will take a look at that. My case only has enough space for 2 more drives, and they have to be SSD drives. So, okay, now this is something that you're going to see that pops up, number conflict. And it's going to ask me about this number conflict. Show import conflict. Yes. We'll notice that 310997 is in the talk group list twice, on line 615 and line 1572. So here's how we have to fix that. Otherwise, it won't import the contact list correctly. So what we've got to do is we actually have to edit in Excel or whichever program is your preferred CSV editor. Let me pull this up here. Here's all those CSV files I was telling you about. So what I've got to do is go down here to talk groups. And this is going to pull it up in Excel. And I'm not worried about recovering that file. Okay. So what I need to do is go down to line 1572 and make sure that that has that 310997 there, which it does right here. Now, if I go down to line 1617, or 1615, excuse me, we see that it's there again. So all we have to do to fix this so it'll import is actually delete that whole line, click save, and then we can exit back out of Excel, exit back out of here, and do the import from file list again. Now, this only happens with the super or ultra code plug coming from the 878 going to the 168, or the 578 going to the 168. And I don't know why that is in there twice. We do have a new version of the super code plug and ultra code plug we're working on that takes care of that issue, that will be available for download for BC Plus members. As well as we are working on the new code plug that will have TGIF mixed in with it. So we will have that as well. Jeremy, yes, I agree. Make sure you know where you're saving your files before you start. That was my bad because that was one of the new hard drives on my computer. So, all right, import data. It's still working on it. I would love to see AnyTone update their software to be multi-threaded, but right now it's only single core threaded. So it'll depend on the speed of your single core on your processor, or your processor single core operations on how fast it processes this. Okay, so here is a common error that you will see whenever you do an import. AES encryption code, you can actually ignore this. ARC4 encryption code, you can ignore this. And then import complete, click OK. And then we see all of our data is pulled in, as well as that radio ID list. So here's the NOAA channels. Here's my international talk groups. So all of that stuff. So as well as down here, we have the, if you're ever in Missouri, the WB0YRG or WB0YRG repeater.
That's all, folks.
I know, right? It's the lack of caffeine today. This is one of the DMR repeaters that we can actually hit from the BridgeCom that is pre-set up in the code plug. The ones right here are analog examples. And then here's the digital example and an analog example to help people get started with the super code plug. One thing I will tell you, if you are going in and taking and adding your analog channels, you're going to take and have to edit the bandwidth to 25 kilohertz. If you have a commercial version of the 878 and you're trying to install the super code plug or the ultra code plug, it's not going to let you write it to the radio. It's going to pop up with a band error because both of those code plugs are designed for mode 7, which is the amateur radio mode that the standard 878 is shipped in. If you have the commercial, it'll be mode 0001, which is part 90, United States, 12.5 kilohertz bandwidth. So just a heads up on that. If you're just going to be doing DMR, that 12.5 kilohertz limitation is not going to affect you if you're using, you know, hotspot with your commercial radio. But you do need to make sure that you follow all FCC guidelines and regulations. What you choose to do with your equipment is your responsibility, and we are not responsible if Mr. FCC man shows up at your door. Just want to make that abundantly clear. I've seen a few of the videos on YouTube lately. Yes. I guess there's some GMRS operators who got in trouble for using too much power or something, and the FCC showed up. So just make sure you're doing everything that you're legally allowed to do with your license, and you'll be fine. That being said, if you're trying to add a digital channel, what you've got to do, actually, Rob, you gave me an idea for one. I'll save that for the after show, because if I scare people off by singing after the recording's over with, we're fine. Anyway, when you go to add a digital channel, the thing that you've got to remember is you've got to take and know what talk groups you're going to set up. And the simplest way to do it is actually to copy a channel, paste it, do that a couple of times. And then you can come in here and put in what you're going to set the channel as. So let's say this is worldwide. So I'm just going to put WW for worldwide. What I'm going to do is make sure that, you know, all my information for the repeater matches like it's supposed to. And then come over here and you'll see this whole list of talk groups. How do you find out which talk group is the correct one? You can actually go on Brandmeister's website and look at their talk group list and type in the name of the talk group that you want to use, and it'll tell you the number. And then you can look for TG and that talk group number in this list. Worldwide, I know is talk group 91, mostly because that is the most common tech support call that I get is my hotspot is stuck on talk group 91. I can't hear anything on any other talk group. How do I fix this? You got to use the talk group disconnect from talk group 91. If you don't, just unplugging your SkyBridge or your hotspot will not work to get rid of that. You got to disconnect. Which brings me to the next point here in a moment. Here's talk group 91 right there. So I just click OK, and then we see the contacts assigned. And I'm going to leave this one for Parrot. So I'll just rename this one Parrot.
Polly want a cracker?
Actually, right now, yes, saltine sounds good.
91 is a monster.
91 is entertaining at times because people talk so fast in other languages sometimes that it's like you're watching the kids from the international school drive by on the bus all shouting at the same time in different languages. It's like, meow. So, and then this one I'm going to set as a talk group disconnect for this channel.
Oh,
so TG-DISC.
All of the good stuff over here in the chat.
So this one says that talk group name or that name already exists. So I need to choose a different name. So I'm just going to put my talk group disconnect and click OK. So there's everything programmed for that. That's how you program in your different talk groups. And the simplest way to do it is just take one that is already set up for your hotspot and copy it, then paste it multiple times, and then just go in and change your contact and the name to match what the contact or talk group name is. That way, you're good to go. But shortcuts Key functions, because we were going to talk about those. Let's get over here to optional settings, because something you're going to notice is a lot of your stuff doesn't import. Your power on display, if you set custom character right here, this is where you can type in your name, your call sign, your DMR ID, a phone number. If your radio gets lost and somebody turns it on and they want to call you and say, hey, I found your radio, if they're so inclined to be a good Samaritan, this is where you can put that information under custom character right here. The default startup channel, this is entirely on you on if you want to set this up. I don't, because I normally just want my radio to start up on whatever the last channel I was on is.
Oh, it's easy for me. I use a startup A for parent, startup B, disconnect.
Which is actually a really good way to do it. But I'm also have made it a religious habit of making sure that I disconnect from whatever talk group I'm on, because waking up in the middle of the night, realizing that you left your radio on, and all of a sudden you're startled awake by somebody doing a radio check on a talk group. Not exactly the best thing in the middle of the night.
Set for main channel switch. Bump it. I'm on channel B, sit there, key it up, and then I get that lovely recording. Not linked.
Yes. Now, important note, with the WPSD operating system on hotspots, this goes for all of them. Anything that has WPSD is the operating system now instead of Pi-Star. You will not hear the audible not linked unless you set a receive group with talk group 9 on each channel. You have to do that to be able to hear not linked when you do the disconnect. If you don't have that, you will not hear it. It's something with the DMR gateway, because the WPSD operating system by default enables DMR gateway, so you can have multiple DMR networks set up. So just something to keep in mind. That is why you don't hear it anymore. And people are like, I think my radio's broke. I think my Skybridge is broke. I think my Zoom spot is broke. I think my jumbo spot's broke. I don't hear the talk group disconnect, even though I'm disconnected from the talk group. What's going on? That's why.
Either that or they're in a different mode and do the disconnect and it's still connected in the other mode. And they wonder why they can't talk on DMR.
Yes. All right. So display. Something you'll notice on the 168, there is no volume bar display. That is because they did not put that feature on the 168. So if you're looking for that, it is not there. For me, I always set my brightness for 5, sometimes 4. And my backlight duration, I usually leave that for a minute or so. And something that they added is called night mode, which actually can dim the backlight to level 1. This is really good if you're sitting in the ham shack at night and you don't want to get blinded by the light, so to put it, because your screen timed out and all of a sudden somebody's talking.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. The other thing is the standby character colors and the background picture. The default is going to be the blank screen. The other one is the custom 1, custom 2. I haven't seen updated images yet to show the battery indicator correctly on the 168. As well as a lot of these other settings you can customize. GPS, even though this is here, it is not available on the 168. At least this model of the 168. If AnyTone decides to do it in a future revision of the 168, I think they were thinking ahead, and that's why it's in the software.
Very misleading.
It's easier to put it in the software now and have it already there and then add the GPS board in the feature later than it is to say, okay, we're going to add this and oh crud, we've got to take and rewrite the software.
Yeah. Well, what I'm going from is, and a couple of other groups that I participate in, that's been one of the biggest things. It says it's got it. It says it's got it. Well, I hate to be the one that walks up with the needle and goes pop to their little bubble, and yeah.
Yes. So real quick, let's get over to key function. So if you'll notice, they actually put a picture of what button is what of the 168. This actually made me very happy because it lets people know which button is which on the radio now, instead of them having to flip back and forth to the manual. So, Todd, I will make sure I send that message to AnyTone to ask them if they can do that. But I am willing to bet that the next version of the 800 series radios is probably going to take a page from this version of the 168 software. I won't bet very much on it, but I think I can spare a few bags of M&Ms for that. So, okay. So you'll notice you've got several options here, and you'll notice there's a long key 1 and a long key 2. Long key 2 is a 2-second press, while long key 1 is a 1-second press. Very similar to the BTO1. So what I suggest doing is, since we already know this function is set up, is actually setting my PF1, which is the middle button on the side of the radio. I actually set mine to my hotkey 1, so I have a button pre-configured to disconnect. Then if I'm going to use the sub-channel, I'll make my hotkey 2 the sub-channel switch or main channel switch. But for me personally, I don't use the second VFO. So this is up to what you want to set your radio up for. So long key 1 for the PF1 button. That one I usually save for analog, and I set that to power because FCC rules state we're supposed to use the lowest amount of power possible to make our transmission. So if I'm trying to hit a repeater and I can't get into it, I've got an option to bump the power up. And once I hit turbo, if I still can't make that repeater, either I'm not close enough or the settings on repeater book were wrong, which unfortunately does happen because not all repeater owners update their information on repeater book, or they may have something going on at the repeater. So just a couple of things that may happen. The PF2 long key 1, which 1 means 1 second here, I will actually turn to sub-channel switch so I can turn off the sub-channel. And then the 2-second press, since the radio doesn't have Bluetooth, there's no point in trying to set anything with Bluetooth up here. I don't even think they have that option here. But what I can do, they've already got it here, but they don't have it in the radio. So let me see if I can find it here. And for me, if I'm going to set a scan up, and I recommend this for everybody, if you have a scan list set up, make sure you've got one of your buttons set for a nuisance delete, so you can delete a channel if the scan list gets stuck on that channel. You definitely want to do that. And Jonathan, you are correct. Long key 2 will get disabled if you're using monitor. So if you set any of these up for monitor, just expect that other key to get disabled. when you have monitor on. So let's see. For me, let's go ahead and set this one for VFO memory recall. So I can switch between my VFO and memory recall. And then last but not least, Jeremy, what do you think's a good one to have here?
Well, the one thing that I always like to do on mine is I'll actually do that dim shut off.
Dim shut off? All right. So there's that. So here's all my key functions now.
One thing I would mention on that key function list is those bottom 4 or 5. Make sure you've got them set to off.
Yes. Because I cannot tell you how many times me or Jeremy has gotten a code plug sent to us and somebody had these turned on and they were wondering why the buttons were not working on their radio.
My radio turns on, but it's dead. I can't do nothing on it. Well, I wonder why.
So there is that. And then the other thing right here that you may want to do is if you go to options, you'll notice APRS is on, Bluetooth and GPS. Just turning these on right here is not going to turn it on the radio because it doesn't have the hardware for it. I've already had to explain that a couple of times. So just a reminder, it does not have GPS or Bluetooth in it. However, it does have APS transmit and receive on digital and APRS transmit on analog, as long as you come over here to APRS and you set fixed location beacon on. And in this case, you can set 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And let's say I turn 1 on. This will actually let me put in my GPS coordinates for where I'm at currently. Now, remember, United States, you're going to put west. If you put east, you're going to be somewhere in the ocean, or you're going to be somewhere in over like India or something. So just, I had somebody that had that the other day and it was on east and they're like, I don't understand why it's showing a picture of a car in the water.
Well, mine was
south of Africa.
They were on in a the bicycle, and they they were right there on the toe of Italy.
Oh, geez.
I'm not in Italy. I think he was in Texas. I said, well, here's the problem right here. Flip that, wrote it to the radio, and like, oh yeah, there I am. There you go.
Now, one thing to remember with your longitude here, you do not have to put the minus in because this W represents the minus. So when you get your coordinates, if you see the minus in front of the longitude, you don't have to put the minus in. The W takes care of that for you for west. All right. Your analog APRS transmit, you want to have this set to wide, and your signal path is always going to be wide 1-1, comma, wide 2-1.
Don't forget the comma.
Yes, that is very, very, very important. Do not forget the comma.
I've seen them where they put a period, or it's got the ampersand, or what's the other, hyphen.
All right, your transmit delay, and I know I didn't say we were going to go over this, but I figured this was some good stuff because I've been getting a lot of APRS questions lately. This would be good to take and have in here. So transmit delay, if I remember correctly, Jeremy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it supposed to be 600 here?
You can do 6 or 1200.
Okay. Pre-wave, because I know on my 878 I had it set for 600.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked perfectly fine, especially when I was running that digipeater using the RTL adapter.
Yep. If you start getting any type of issue where people give you reports of broken packets, your pre-wave, that is the first thing you need to look at. Here in the United States, 6 and 12 are your two common.
When in doubt, use 12. If it's working fine and you want to try 600, go ahead and use 600. But if you start getting the reports of broken packets, drop it down or change it up to 1200. Okay. So your transmit frequencies for APRS analog. In the US, we actually use 144.3900. And as long as you have transmit frequency 1 or transmission frequency 1 here, this is all you need when you're setting up your analog channels. Up here for the digital APRS, I set mine to the current channel. So I set current channel, the channel slot, and then talk group number 310999 for US.
Don't put 4 nines on the tail of it.
No,
because send you up into Canada.
Okay, Chris, that is not something that we can answer because that is actually against FCC rules for that, because you can either use Part 97 or Part 90 on the 168, or excuse me, the 878, the 578, and currently it's Part 97 on the 168. There is a way to do it, but you will have to research that yourself. That is something that we cannot answer because of FCC guidelines. Just because we want to make sure we stay in the good graces of the FCC. But for the digital number 1, that is what we have here. Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it supposed to be private call or group call when you transmit to that?
Group.
I thought it was group call.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't do it on all call because you'll transmit it across every talk group in the radio.
Yeah, that might get some people a little upset.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing I will point out is over on, even though you're doing fixed location for your beacon, make sure you put feet. I've had a lot of them where they have it not on feet and inches, and they got it on metric.
Right. Okay. So if I can get the little window here out of the way so I can get into my configuration of my SkyBridge. I actually have my GPS coordinates already in my SkyBridge because I did that when I set it up. So I'm just going to put that in.
I figured you'd already had it configured for 867.
Nope, but I am still trying to bribe my way into getting that for my DMR ID.
Have you heard of the new mode? And no,
M17?
I am not talking about M17.
Which one?
DSVI.
No, I have not.
Right now for the United States, it starts in the 8 series.
Okay.
And so I saw that ID come across, and I was like, "Oh, Jeremiah finally got over here and got him an ID," and then it wasn't you, and I kind of bummed out a little bit.
It happens. All right, so W9JM. If I can spell correctly today with my wrist.
Lord Lenny got that one.
Yes. All right, so all of my APRS settings, it didn't save it. That's odd. Let's try that again. Saved everything else. May have just found a bug I need to let AnyTone know about.
Click OK. Now go back into it.
It's not saving it.
What I had to do is I put mine on 3. It was the only one I found that worked.
Okay. So, see, Jeremy has had a lot more time to mess with the settings on his 168s than I have. I know.
I was waiting for somebody else to make that one obvious.
Saved it there, but it's not saving it on 1 for some reason. Okay. Auto transmit interval. I'm going to set this for 60 seconds. Click OK. And then, just for an example here, let me go in, put my radio ID in real quick.
867. Oh, sorry.
All right. Now, going in and putting in my radio ID in right here, when we go back to channel, we'll see that it filled it in for all of them. So we're good there now. Now, to turn on APRS so it'll work with my SkyBridge, I'm going to change this channel to Massachusetts. Should be 3125, I believe. Don't ask me how I find those so quick. I just do.
Well, when you do it as much every day, you know, you already know where they're at.
Yeah. Okay. So here's how I turn this on to transmit my APRS over DMR. So report type, I'm going to choose digital. And I want this to transmit when I do the push to talk. And then report channel is 1. And because I only set up channel 1 in the APRS settings, that's why I'm selecting 1. All right. So I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to write this back to the radio. I'm not going to do digital contact list right now because the radio has a newer digital contact list in it than what's in this code plug. So I'm just going to do other data. All right, write data complete. The radio is rebooting. All right. All right. So the screen automatically dimmed with the way things are set up. So I'm going to change this to Massachusetts now. W9JM on Massachusetts statewide. And then we'll see that it automatically at the end of the transmission sends out the APRS beacon on Brandmeister. So what we can do to make sure that that is working, let me pull a new tab up here. Let's see here. Grab the right web browser. APRS.fi. There is another one that we can use, APRS.to, I think it is. But I just keep forgetting about that one because I'm so used to everything else. So we'll see that it hasn't shown yet. But we should see it here shortly.
And if you try to go to the APRS.to, there is a database outage right now. You'll actually get the message, it pops up. It says database outage. The site suffered a database outage this morning. We're currently working to restore from a backup and expected to be back online within a couple of hours. And the site host or the engineer, November 2 Romeo Whiskey Echo, is the one that posted that.
Okay. Actually, Steve is in our chat. He said it's back up now.
Okay.
So let's try that one real quick.
I used this
APRS.to.
one versus the FI. I like the way this one feels a lot better than the .fi.
And if you're not seeing that it's showing your beacon on the APRS tracking websites, there's a couple of reasons why that may be happening. For me, right now with the 168, I'm almost willing to bet that I have forgotten to go in and make sure that my APRS is set up on Brandmeister. I have a bad habit about forgetting to do that. So let's log into Brandmeister real quick and take a look-see here. Okay, so secure local pass is turned off, so that's good. Air security is turned off, that's good. And if we go to my SkyBridge, 192.168.1.152, we can actually see where it is transmitting the data. And it just did it again at 8:53, my time. So let's search for me real quick, W9JEM. And I think it's got me as -6 on this radio.
Yep.
Yep, right there. So where is it showing me at on the map? That's what I'm a little confused about, because I should be right in here. Because right here at this intersection is a CVS pharmacy.
It's been 6 months since you last packeted.
Well, that's weird because it's showing 10/24/24 at 8:55 p.m.
Look at the latest packet.
Latest
6 months ago.
position. Yeah, I'm looking at this one right here that's showing today's date under latest position. I wonder why that is. Yeah, so it's beaconing out, but for some reason it's not showing up. So this has got to be something with my configuration. So it just goes to show that setting up APRS sometimes isn't exactly the exact science you think it is. I know on my 878, actually, there it is. Trying to grab my BTO1, and I just realized that the power supply for my 578 is unplugged right now. This is what happens when you move your office around. You forget which things still need to be plugged in. Yes, Todd, I do. I swear my brain would be unplugged if it wasn't hardwired.
At least you're not being censored.
True. Okay. So the W9JAM, this is where it should be beaconing at. And that AT-D168UV is actually from my 578. Todd, I actually remembered to charge all my batteries this time. So all my batteries are charged. So 1 out of 2 is not bad.
It wouldn't be Jeremiah if something didn't go awry that way.
Yes. Unfortunately, he's not wrong. Okay.
Meatloaf.
1 second here.
Oh.
Yeah, APRS interval is set to 120 seconds on Brandmeister. Everything is turned on for that. So I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Let me see here.
Well, I'm looking at your live packets, and it says listening for packets from Whiskey 9 Juliet Alpha Mike -6.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put this on Massachusetts menu. APRS, upload type, digital. Push to talk on. Report channel, current channel, upload slot, channel slot 2, and upload ID.
Greg has got a very good point. You need to turn off GPS roaming.
Yes.
Appreciate that, Greg. I didn't catch it.
GPS roaming is turned off on all my radios.
When you wrote that one, it was turned on, I do believe.
quick way to find out. Yeah, GPS roaming's off.
No, in your APRS tab, bub. Top left. Support for roaming on.
Oh.
Good catch, Greg. Good catch.
Okay.
Now rewrite it.
Okay.
Oh, all of the times that I used to do the shows and would do it from scratch radio, like when I would did the multi-network code plug. Yeah, granted, I sat there and wrote that thing in about 60 days and then done it live. And I still had hiccups.
Yes, I know that feeling too. All right. Okay.
Isn't it about the drawing time, Mr. Jeremiah?
Yep, we're going to try this here in just a second. W9JM on Massachusetts statewide.
Whew.
Yeah, I had two radios on. Sorry.
Yeah, back off that mic too.
All right. So let's go back over here. There is not a YouTube drawing for this show. Just the one for... Yep, still not showing it. Are you sure it needs to be set as group call and not private call?
I've got mine set for group and that's how I've got all mine set up.
Okay, it just beaconed out again.
Because see, I'm showing your -6 as a 578 still.
Yeah, because on my others, it's set as a private call. So, yeah. All right. Well, this wasn't supposed to be a lesson on APRS, so I'm going to have to dig into it more with the 168 to figure out what I'm doing wrong here. Because we know it works on my 578 because it shows the tracking from, 20 days ago being in the 578. So with that, let me go ahead and stop share here. And for everybody on YouTube, thank you for tuning in tonight. If you do have any questions about your radio, as far as how to do the import-export, we do have videos on YouTube as well, is on the BridgeCom University for doing the import and export. Most common time that you will need to do that is if somebody sends you a code plug for an area and you're trying to put it into your radio and it's giving you a band error. First step I always tell people is export the code plug and then re-import it after reading your radio. That 9 times out of 10 takes care of that band error issue. So with that, everybody on YouTube, thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm Jeremiah, W9JAM, with my co-host.
KD5YUZ.
And my other co-host, if he's still here. Well, I think he might not be here because he wasn't feeling well. So for Andy, KC9SKV 73.